Hi everyone, welcome back to the studio. We're continuing our wildflower challenge, okay? We're going to paint some more fun ones. And you get some great ideas. Just go to like Google Images and put in wildflowers. Um, and you'll see there's huge varieties. I remember out in Pennsylvania, we used to buy just this wildflower because we had a large, many acres of property, and some of it we wanted to seed, and so we'd buy this wildflower mix and just throw them out there, and you get wildflowers, all different kinds of shapes and sizes and colors. It's just beautiful. And so today, what I did was I, found a couple of photos. Of course, these are forget-me-nots. These I know, and they're really small. These are the smaller forget-me-nots. They're about the size of my thumbnail, so they're really quite small. And this was so funny with this photo. This person had put up a photo of a white wildflower, which I'll kind of use, and they said, no idea what kind that is. I mean, it's just a wildflower. I used to get a lot of these, but one thing I was looking at this, it was so funny, is that this one here has 6 petals. This one has 6 petals. That one has 5. That one has 5. So with 5 or 6 petals, even the same variety can have a different number of petals. Anyway, here we go. This is our board. This is a tempered board. This is an 8x10 board. And my same colors that I've used before, putting out my Hansa yellow, my yellow, Darulide yellow. I just transferred these from another palette I was just painting. And some yellow oxide, naphtha red light, burnt sienna, pine green, phthalo blue, quinacridone violet, red violet, and the white. And we'll get going on this. I made a light gray background here. This is white, a little black, a little yellow, and we'll streak a little color to begin with. And I think it might be kind of nice if we key off of some of those that beautiful forget-me-nots here for a bit, and we'll put up a blue violet into the background here. So phthalo blue, a little quinacridone, and let's make it a light softened color here, and you can tone that if you want to tone it, but I might see I kind of like real blurred images of stuff into the back, so I might think of this as like back flowers or something back here, and just push in some other colors and let these, we might turn some of these areas right into forget-me-nots or whatever, but just splash some color around. These are small compositional paintings here, so have some fun with them. I mean, just, they're quick little fun things. Try some things. Let's take a bit of our green and burnt sienna, my favorite, that I like to add back in through some of this, and let's just push some of this out. Like this can be some of the leaves. And I'm just using the corner of my brush and just dragging it. It'll create the look of some stems and some other little movements and stuff going on. Just fun. Just try some fun movements with them here. And push off. Let's push off a little yellow green out here too, because that's fun. These are fun colors to have. Just splashes of them here that you can have to just brighten up and lighten up there. So that's that's casual, isn't it? Okay, let's go in and let's key off of this burnt sienna and some of our blue. That makes beautiful tone for our grays, for the white ones that we're going to want. They're a circular flower, but their petals are a little bit more narrow. So let's just, actually I'm going to come a little bit lighter here first. Maybe a bit warmer, a bit of yellow in that too. So gray is from our burnt sienna and our blue, and then lighter and warmer. Let's push one maybe right into here, and we can do 5 or 6 petals. We want them kind of wider at the top. That little wildflower is wider at the top, narrower at the bottom. Okay, then we'll turn this one kind of sideways here, around like that. We'll turn this one in a bit like that. Maybe come out like that. It's a pretty little shape. Wider and then narrow back in. So there's 4. Let's put 5, almost 6. How's that? There we go. A little wider out here onto this one. Here, that's a good little shape for that little flower. And let's I like to put buds of them also, so let's put a little bud of one right here, a little gray into that here. Right over here. Right like that. There we go. And maybe another downturned one going off this way. That would be kind of nice. Let's pull it wider and then pull in. Here like that. And we can blur this too. If this is the back one going down like this, we can put in a couple of more defined, definitive shapes and then blur some of it too. You know, that's very impressionistic, so we can do that as well. So that's kind of a pretty little shape. Now, let's fill in with some of our nice forget-me-nots. This nice blue violet that I made here for the back, let's lighten it up a bit more. And they're smaller, so I'm going to keep them smaller. Just little small shapes of these. Fun little ones. Just touch using the chisel of the brush. You can go down to a smaller brush too, but we'll just create a few little movements of those there. And we'll add more colors and stuff to them, but I like the lighter color to kind of draw too. Let's add some filling up through here. Smaller. The forget-me-nots have 5 petals. I've painted them several times on several things, but majority of the time, since they grow in all kinds of clumps and clusters, I just kind of, push them all together. Let's push a little color into there too, before I get too far there. A little bit. I like that green. Don't want to lose all of that. There'll be fun little colors there, and we'll get a little lighter. Push in some light, quick little strokes of color, light, and then we'll vary the color, tap into some other, vary the color, maybe even some of them a little bit more purpley color here, because the forget-me-not does have a little bit of the violets into it, see, so you can get that. So vary those colors. It's fun. Just create some fun little shapes. We'll put a little bit of darker violet kind of color here. That's a little too dark there. Fun. But you're the artist. You create interest by having the different values, different shapes, different intensities, temperatures, fun things. All good colors. But you don't need to be perfect with setting up all the shapes of the petals. You only need a few, especially in small little paintings like this. Let's lighten up. Let's put just a little bit of purple into some of this one. So sometimes if I have that, I'll just drag a little color across. That keeps it very casual, and then I'll reset the petal up onto the violet with some of that violet as well. You can also go to a smaller brush. Now, I did put out like a small filbert here if you wanted to make a couple of those, which we might here. Let's just do that, show you. You can, normally when I work a composition, a floral composition, I don't like to change too much because I like to have the same kind of calligraphy. In other words, change between a filbert and a flat. I like to have the same calligraphy. But on a small composition, you have a little more leeway because your eye takes in the entire composition. And so you can use this to generate a couple of different types of flowers and, different brush calligraphy. And so that's fine. But generally, if I'm painting a larger composition, I don't do it too often. That's my own personal goal. That's not like a rule. That's my own personal thing. I don't like to say too many rules to my painting friends and students because that just stops the creativity. Too many rules are not great. Let's just pop in a little bit. See, that makes kind of a pretty little bit there. Let's come work a little more light. So vary the brightness. Work a little more light here up onto the edges of this one, and then just go right through to your blues. Here, let's head over towards the violets just a bit here. onto this one. This will be a real pretty little color of one. Let's get I like that bit of green going through there. So I'm going to leave just a touch of that green kind of showing up into that because that's kind of nice, that little bit of green. Let's do a little bit more of an edge here. Up onto this one, a little darker on that one. Maybe this one could use a touch more of an edge on that petal so it really comes up in front. But see, it's got some different colors going into it, so it's really kind of a pretty one. You don't need every one to look like that, especially in a small composition. You want some of them just to be nothing. That you don't want to make them all the same. That's the key to small paintings like this, that you have some of these. And, you know, Monet said it, all the great masters say that you leave, Monet said you leave 25% of the painting unfinished so that the viewer has a place for their own imagination. And I've said that to you in other classes and everything many times. Don't paint it so perfect that you rob the viewer of their imagination. Always leave some of these lost little edges and lost little things that go on that gives the viewer, more imagination. All right. So let's come in and let's use a brighter yellow for these white ones. They're going to have a brighter yellow and then a little green into the center. So let's add just a touch of white to that. This is the Hansa and the Darulite. They're both semi-transparent, really, and so they don't have much opaquing power. Yellow oxide's your main opaquing one. If you want to opaque anything, see how that opaques anything, you can get those colors in there. Push them around a bit. Some yellows into the centers. That's kind of nice. And they have slight pinky tones to them, and that's kind of pretty. Let's put a little pink, nice warm, since we have so much cool going through here. Let's warm that pink, just a bit of white here. Warm that pink up just a bit and push some of that through. There we go. Right in there, just a little bit of that color. Now we'll go back to our whites and yellows, a little bit of that pink, some of these grays. Model all of these colors together. It's nice, beautiful grays. And then we'll pick up some more white here. And let's pull that light edge and leave it a little darker into the center there. Center of the petal. Let's put a little more white. So what I do is I load the edge of the brush here with a little bit more white. Just right, and I just lean over on that edge of this little filbert. I'm using the filbert now. And pull that in. And I don't like it where they're even on both sides. Since I'm going to pick light up from the top, I'll roll this down and pull a little more light down from the top. Let's pull more light in on this side here. Then we'll load into some gray and restroke the other side and just kind of streak it a bit. It makes kind of a real quick, pretty little petal. Let's pull in some light out and narrow down as you come in. And that makes kind of a pretty little petal. Light up here to the very front. And then let it fade away. Let's put light into the very front here. And maybe make this like 2 petals. We don't know. Since we don't know if there's 6 or 5 petals, so we'll just fake it. Fun. Keep it fun. That's why I like challenges, to be fun painting. And I had one of my students email me and say, wow, that last one was so much fun. That's what I like it to be. We have just some fun, quick painting and create some different looks. They're great when they get framed up. They're just great. I've dropped mine all into frames, and then I brought a couple back out and put them up here on the easel. But I just love them in the frames. They're great little, and the small ones like this, they're great for in between, door jambs and stuff like that in your house. So I'm putting light right up on the edge, rolling it right in, widening it out, then leaving the other side, some of that original, and just pulling. That gives a nice little variation to it. We can also streak out some colors, some little violets and reds, but the thing is you try to paint each one, you try not to set up a habit, so you try not to paint each one exactly the same. And we can leave like some of these edges really casual, just broken like that. That makes kind of a fun little thing. This one has a darker little green. Let's put green and a little burnt sienna here. Maybe a little yellow oxide in it. Model that together. Here, a little more green. Just model that together. And we'll tap in like a circle of that. Now that's a little too mixed for me, so I'm going to tap in some burnt sienna and some yellow. I like the modeling of the color when different colors come out. Okay, so it's not like just one color. Let's use a little burnt sienna and green for like the calyx here of this one. We can drop in the idea of a stem or two here. Okay, there's a nice bright little yellow into the forget-me-nots, yellow to white. See, it goes almost white. It's almost like this is a young one and they lose their color after a while, kind of fugitates. So yellow, some diarylite, some yellow oxide. It's a perfect color for that little guy. Push that right into the center. There's another one right there. I don't always like, you see them as like almost perfect rounds. I don't like to make it like perfect round. I like to vary a little different. Then just add a few taps of like softer ones disappearing through there. That's kind of nice. And we'll make some lighter yellow. Hansa yellow and white, and maybe a bit of our diarylite. And I like that yellow oxide just because it gives a bit of power to those colors. And let's just stroke some of that around. This white one, push that in and out of the center there. Push that around. Vary it. See how I'm just kind of casually do things here. That's what you want to do. You don't want to make it, especially when you're doing something like this. Roll the brush, do some different sides and stuff like that, because you could very quickly, make that thing look very stiff by having the same in and out of there, like the spokes of a wheel. So, we like to paint it. Even though it kind of looks like the spokes of a wheel, you want to paint it kind of casual, I'm going to restate some of that burnt sienna and green here. Just nice little dots of that. Nice little, that's better. Casual little bits of that. There. That's what I like, is a blurry casual center. It's more interest, at least for me. I like it that way. And yeah, let's go back. I always believe, especially if you're painting with the white, it is to harmonize and bring everything together. So let's take a little light and a little bit of violet from our forget-me-nots here, and let's put a bit of that into these white flowers. That's the harmony between the forget-me-nots and the white flowers. So we had some warmth, but let's put in those reds, let's put in some cools. And this is the one thing where you can make white flowers look really neat by having some of the different colors. Now you see those colors just kind of traveling through. And then let's go reset our whites again, our light colors, into those flowers. Boom. Keeping them kind of casual edges. Let's push just a bit into this one. A little bit lighter maybe on that one. There. And push up maybe a bit lighter onto this one as well. And you know, you work kind of fast. You work very casual strokes because you don't want these to get too stiff, right? All right, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to add just a little bit more light whites, even a little warm yellow into that. Touches to these little forget-me-nots here and there. Little light touches. Just a couple of those, vary those colors. And now before we go do any of the final centers and stuff like that, let's carry some deeper color. So right now the composition looks okay, but it could have some deeper, darker color. Let's take some greens and some of our violets here, maybe even a little bit of burnt siennas. We'll model some of these together here. Violet, blues, greens, burnt siennas. These are deep, dark, cool colors you can use for contrast into stuff. So I would put touches of this. See how that push or really lifts the certain parts of, but it's contrast. And so you would touch little bits of this contrast around, and so what it does is it contrasts that center more. Do you see? And so, you know, how much you put in is how much you want to have contrast. There are some people who just really like a lot of contrast, and we might push in a lot, like right in here, push this one, this forget-me-not, right in next to a bunch of dark. See? That creates a heck of a lot more contrast there. Let's put some right back through here. More contrast. I mean, you're in control of that. How much contrast do you want to have? And then let's just reset that little forget-me-nots light colors. Not exactly the same. Let's just reset it. Right up in front of that. Let's push this light little one right there. That's kind of pretty. I do like that green coming through one. Might be kind of nice to paint these almost transparent. But then move a few little movements of some of those colors back behind there, like there's something else going on in there. Little edges of light there. That's kind of pretty. So see, you can see that dark just puts in that extra little bit of light into the composition. Now you can have some softer, doesn't have to be completely dark. You can have some softer touches of color like that, like right back in here. Push in, maybe not quite that bright. And you can always add a little water to it, like I just did to thin it out a bit, but take some of that back here like that. Watching the contrast of your lights and darks. That's what you're watching, the contrast of your lights and darks. Then we'll come in and reset some of the light edges here. Right up on the tops of these. And I do like it when you get a bit of that color mixing. So a bit of that blues coming through. That just looks nice here. There, like that. Pretty little flowers. A little bit more onto these guys. Through. Vary the color, vary the blues a bit. There. That looks pretty nice. And we'll add the details to the nice little burnt sienna center to the little forget-me-nots. I always feel that adds, when you start decorating that little center. There's little touches of white, little strokes of white that is right on the edge of each of the petals, actually. So it would be right here like this. So I just put a little white on the chisel part of my little filbert here and just pull out here like that. Now you don't need to do each one perfect. Matter of fact, it's prettiest if they're not quite so perfect. There, like that. Just little ones, just little ideas onto the others. A little more blue, a little softer. Doesn't need to be bright and you don't need to do each one. You just, just give the idea that those are there. I'm going to use the chisel of this with burnt sienna and diarylite yellow here to put the outside edges of this little white wildflower, which we don't quite know what it is, but fun little one. There, like that. And just draw a few little lines. Don't make them all perfect. Let some of them be very casual. There. And then we'll tap a little yellow into the centers. There. And little yellow right into here. And sometimes I don't really like painting the centers perfect. Sometimes I like them a little bit more blurry than what I have them here. And I don't like to be too precise because that tends to make the flowers stiff. So I usually like to blur it around a little bit, work it around the colors a little bit, back and forth between some of the yellows and the lights here, and restate a few of them a couple of times, maybe a stroke of the Hansa yellow and yellow oxide right in here like that to put just a little bit more. Now see, that starts to lighten up, airy up, but vary the centers a little bit more. Streaks of color, varying them. And that gives more interest, I think, to the flowers. And so sometimes it's not as important to render something like that perfect as it is just to have some fun with it. Here, let's on this edge here, let's bring in some light, a little bit more light. That sets that up on top of that forget-me-not just a bit more. And then, that's good. Now, these small wildflowers and stuff don't normally have little leaves, not very many with them. But we can put some, I like that light little sparky green that I had right back there. Most of it got covered up, but I do want to spark a little bit of the green around. Get a fresh paper towel here. Go. I like yellow green, the pine green, and some of that Hansa, especially if I'm working with little flowers like this. Just fun little colors here. Add a few little touches around. You put a little more green in it as you go to like stems and stuff down here. Try to vary the colors, don't do too many of the same color. Vary some of the colors, a little more pine green here, a little bit of yellow with that. Have some fun with the colors, greens. And now, one of the things about this little paint, coming out as a nice little paint, that stops too much. See how it's angled into the corner there too much? And I saw that when we were doing it, but it's easy to correct. We can just take some of our blue and push our blue a little bit further out and softer into this painting. A little bit of blue, a little bit of white, a little bit of that violet too, working through. Just makes it pretty. Let's just lighten up and airy up the background here. and work some of those colors through. See, that kind of fills in the painting a little bit more. We can take some of that, just pretty colors, just tap some of those around back here like that, and kind of give a little more body to the composition as well. Let's yeah, and then we could, you can do any color, anything down here. We could even key off of our lighter greens and push some of those around. Greens, a little bit of burnt siennas, some of those colors right back down through here, changing that a bit. But those violets are sure kind of pretty, and so I might do those just a bit more violet, thin. I like that green and violet combination there. It's kind of pretty. Just drop those around. Something about little forget-me-nots. But let's lighten up the color of that violet. Push that through just a bit. There, like that. That's kind of a... See, that what that does is, by pushing all that back, it's focusing your eye in more on the white blossoms. Now, I hit the blossoms in a couple of areas, so I'll just set those back in here and bring them back up like that. Not all the way, just a little bit of it, because I did like them. And if you go too many times, you'll make them opaque. So just little edges here. And so it's the little found edges there that really start to bring it out. So sometimes we just opaque it up a bit and then bring a little more powerful white into it here. We could make a soft little water, a little transparent. Make another soft little bud of that right over here. Not a complete one, just a little bud maybe of it. Push that through. Maybe a little angle here. Like that's just a soft one. Don't like that big swoop to it, so I'll have to change that a bit. There. But, a lot of times when you're impressionistic painting, it takes just a idea. Don't get too carried away with it. It takes just an idea. Let's put in just a little touch of yellow and some movement back in there, and that's all that really needs for that one here. Maybe a little bit more of a rounding bud or something back here. Those colors, it just needs the color more than anything else. Should get to that. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm going to soften, go back to a light that's almost the value of what I have here in my background. I'm going to push some of this in here. I know that seems kind of strange for a second, but I'm just going to soften that in and then take most of it off with my paper towel. I'll give a little bit more of a soft look back through there and to some of my movements. So you just put a little light color and you go back through like this, which I want to put in there, and then I'll take my paper towel and see that all softens. It removes some of the excess and softens it out. Gives a nice effect to the painting. So you make a nice little boom of white, I don't know, wildflowers and some forget-me-nots. It's a fun little painting, and fun little way to manipulate the background and stuff like that. You could add some more, dark contrast. One of my favorites is the pine green and burnt sienna. And you can add a little bit of that into some negative painting to drop some of that contrast now that we've softened that back. To add in some of your stems back in here again. See how much more power those stems have now when you do that. Little bits of that, but I wouldn't get too carried away. It's just a fun, quick little, painting that is really kind kind of fun to do, okay? All right, hope you enjoyed it. Next week, I'll try to find one like a cosmos or something like that where we know what it is, okay? We'll have some fun with it. And for those of you that watch us on YouTube on the channels, I'm putting up all kinds of other videos there. One I just uploaded is on acrylic solvents, painting. You want to watch that one because that's a good one to help you see some of the different techniques that you can use as an acrylic artist, okay? All right, I'll see you next week on maybe Cosmos. Okay, I'll see you then.